So if you had to tell some people, what's the importance of creating an estate plan? What do you think of? What would you tell someone?
Peace of mind that it doesn't have to cost a lot and it doesn't have to be complicated. And it's very step by step, but peace of mind, because it is hard to lose a family member.
Hello, my name is Sterling Alexander. I'm the CEO and founder of iPlanned, and welcome to Plan Your Legacy. Today, I'm talking with Donna Hoffmeyer. She's a advocate with Transitional Warriors. She's the founder of Transitional Warriors, and she advocates on a lot of veterans' behalf. And so, welcome to the show, Donna.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So, Donna has Transitional Warriors. So, tell us a little bit about Transitional Warriors.
So, I retired in 2020. And I was a nurse in the military. And the one thing I realized was two things. One, I never ever wanted a boss again. I was done with bosses. And two, I knew that veterans needed help. And a lot of people know, like, yeah, it's a struggle. It's a struggle with transition and everybody struggles. And there's so many places that help, and they help in different aspects, right? So my area of my skill set kind of went in the area of matching people and resources. I was always good at finding a resource for veterans. Like I always thought, oh, okay, that will work and this will work. Because I did that in the military. My last, 8 years in the military was actually helping veterans get the medical care they needed. But as we all know, sometimes there's a lot more that stems around that. So I was always getting them different resources. Sure. And so when I got out, I was one of those that did the whole crash and burn right down there, yeah. And the running joke, and if you hear any of my podcasts or you talk to me, it'll invariably come up, is that they were always, people would ask me like, oh, how's it going? Because I retired during COVID. And one day I was in and one day I was out. So they're, how's it going? And I'm like, I'm painting rocks. And my friends would just laugh because they know I'm always a jokester. And so they're like, no, really, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm painting rocks.
Painting rocks.
Yeah. I really struggled. I'm like, now what? And it wasn't because, well, it was like what everybody says, you kind of lose your value and your purpose and all that. But it wasn't like, I didn't feel like I didn't have any value. I just needed a break. It was very intense. It was 21 years and it was very, very intense. And I just needed to let my brain slide out the side of my head for a short time. So I did. So I did that. And then after a year, I decided, okay, I think I'm going to work on advocating more. And so I started Transitioning Warrior. And I've let it kind of grow organically. And when I started finding that niche of where we have a hard time. And I find that in lots of different areas. So one of the areas I realized is like, when we get out of the military, we're not trusting, like we come out to the civilian community, they don't know our lingo, we don't know their lingo. We don't have our uniform anymore. We're now in civvies. And right. I know that a lot of people will be like, oh, it just makes you feel important. No, not that. It's like I could go in a room and I could read the room by reading the uniforms and know who was what and where, and at least had a first idea of the people, right? Yeah. And now we don't have that. Now we're like, here you are. I mean, we have a little bit, I planned, There's nothing on me right now, and now we have to figure out how to tell people about ourselves, which we don't do. We don't talk a lot about ourselves and our accomplishments and whatnot. So I said, you know what? And it all comes down to what we call networking, right? And none of us like networking. Like the word is just kind of like a 4-letter word. So I said, we're going to change that up. And so now Transitioning Warrior does coaching, consulting, and advocacy. But the advocacy part of it is we do veteran events, like veteran breakfast. We've done sporting events. You've been at quite a few of them.
Right, yeah.
And we bring them in with the community partners, which are the sponsors, and we don't let the community partners solicit. We ask them to meet them as people, right, yeah. And say like, hey, this is Sterling, or this is Donna, and hey, I'm Fred, and we just get to meet and learn about each other. Because once the trust is built, then there's lots of avenues that could happen. That could be your next employee, that could be your next consumer, that could be your next entrepreneur that you're mentoring. We don't know. It could be your next manager, whatever business you have, and it could just be a really good friend, and that could be that also, or you could just be helping them through a hard time and you don't even realize that.
Yeah, that's one thing I like, because that's where I met you was at a veteran breakfast.
Yeah.
And so I went to the veteran breakfast. For me, when I got out of the military, I kind of disassociated myself with the military and just doing those things. And then, adapting to, civilian life was another hard thing for me.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that till I really started thinking about it.
Yeah.
I always just feel, hey, just having a rough time, I'll just go through things. And I never, until getting with the veterans breakfast and talking more about it and talking with more veterans, it was like, oh, this is kind of what I experienced back then when I got out. And so putting those things together now and being able to be able to move forward and then see what, how I was feeling and kind of be able to match those feelings into where I'm at now.
Yeah, and seeing other people that are like you can identify it quicker.
Yeah.
And then you identify different things. And I think that's kind of like this how this podcast came together, is because one of the things we identified is the whole like kind of getting prepared, right? So estate planning, which is what your podcast is about. And so I have said to you, I advocate and I promote your business all the time because it's so smart.
Right.
We are so Sterling's business, as you can see, iPlanned right here, right?
It's supposed to be an interview about you.
I know,
but
but there's a whole thing that comes to that, is that he is offering online estate planning, so wills and trusts. And it caught my attention because in the military, for those that have never been in the military, we're just pretty much handed a basic will. I mean, we create it with the lawyers, but if we're going to deploy, we're going to go anywhere, we have to have a will. Like, you can't deploy without a will. And so it's like, here's your will. And that's it. And so it's done, and then we forget about it. And then maybe we get out of the military, maybe we have more children, maybe there's a marriage, maybe there's the opposite, maybe there's a divorce. And these things change, and then, we forget about it. Why? Because the military did that for us, just like they did our dental appointments and our physical appointments. Right. Like, we forget because it was all kind of shoved at us. Like, you must have these things. Okay. Yep. Got it.
Right.
So I kind of was like listening to you, and I was like, oh my God, this is makes so much sense. It brings all the worlds together. It brings technology, and it brings the ease of it right there, and it's super affordable. And for our veterans, all those three things are very important. Yeah. Some of them are not a fan, and we're trying to get them to come out of the house and engage more. But if they're struggling at that time, they don't have to go to a big meeting. They can look at your handout and the guide, and they can go through it. They can call, they can ask questions. They could go to an event that you have, and they can go through that and learn about it. But it's really affordable. And for a lot of veterans coming out of the military, that's a big thing. And I've seen it. I lost somebody, a coworker, and I saw what happened when things were not in order. And it was a 3-ring circus, and it resulted in some estrangement between his partner and his family. And I don't think they even talk anymore. And I saw the stress that it all brought because things were not in order. So much like you keyed in on the veterans and the transition, I keyed in on that, and I was like, oh, that's so important. Yeah,
it is. And so you hear all those stories about just people passing away, and then the chaos that happens when you don't have anything planned. And a lot of people that I talk to, they say, yeah, I think it was important, but they never get around to doing it. So it's a huge procrastination part. And I have to admit, my wife and I, we procrastinated for a while. And, we have business, 2 businesses now, then we have, our family and things like that. So we finally got to the point where, we need to take care of this, because if something happened, and it was a result of seeing, family members passed away, colleagues and friends passed away, some that didn't have a will, and seeing some of the just seeing the bad stuff that happens. So it was like, hey, let's get our stuff together and make sure it's taken care of because, we have kids and we're a blended family too. We, have, kids come from a previous marriage and then she has her son. And so, we have to make sure those things are taken care of and, to alleviate any conflict down the road.
Well, and then you look at veterans and I mean, let's be real. All of us are broken. Like if you say, I was a ranger or I was a paratrooper, I say, how's your back? I mean, it's pretty much a guarantee you're kind of broken somewhere, whether it's physically or maybe you're struggling mentally. After a career or any length in the military, I always kind of joke the Vietnam veterans, I will hear them say, well, I only served 4 years. And I'm like, quality over quantity, like, yeah, those 3 of those years you were in Vietnam, like, come on, that's like a whole career in other people.
In a short time, yes.
Right, you have to respect that. So when they're coming out, and they're, depending on when they're coming out, maybe they haven't retired medically, maybe they were medically retired, and maybe they were medically retired at maybe only 30% or low rate, and they're on a fixed income. Maybe they're in a position where work is not really a feasible thing at this time because they have to do some more healing, and they're in these precarious situations financially, but yet they still have a family, they still have assets. And if they don't have a will, it is going to be a nightmare for the family that's left behind. So we don't do this for ourselves. I mean, we're taking the dirt nap. I mean, that's not a
it's going.
We're just like, hey, nice knowing you. That's it, but everybody left behind has to deal with that aftermath. And oh my gosh, I just really saw firsthand what it did. And I was like, oof.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day and it's just, there's so much going on in the world to keep us preoccupied from things that are really important. We can look at other people's lives and other people dying and all those things. And, we feel sorry for a moment, but we don't stop to think of, hey, what it's going to happen to me one day. So what am I actually going to do? So it's, so that's part of the thing, it's mainly educating people, but then get people to see the reality of, hey, I have to stop for a moment. I could take a weekend, just get a little retreat for myself and say, hey, what's going to happen when I pass away? And, what could potentially be the conflicts or resolutions that I can come up with that makes it easier for family members.
Yeah, exactly. And just to go through, it doesn't take a lot. It feels like a lot, trust me. Because I too, the procrastinator here. I mean, we have
procrastinating.
Right. We have a will that needs to be updated. And so I will use your service to get that updated. But when we're going through that, it does seem like a lot because it's a lot of what ifs. But at the same time, like this just happened this past week, a good friend of mine from high school just lost her older sister. And she was a professor at a university and was driving to school and got hit and killed her instantly. Just like that.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not trying to be morbid, but I mean, like, seriously, it's like 1 minute there, 1 minute not.
Yeah.
That can be that fast. And none of us want to, I don't want that to happen. And anytime my family goes out the door, it's always a potential.
Yeah.
And every time they come home, there's a little part of me that's like, we're all safe in the house again. Okay, we're good. It's another good day,
Yeah, I think, like you said, a lot of people don't really want to think about it. But, if it's, one of the things that I want to do is normalize this conversation that people can talk about it. I think I can remember way back, my dad came, we had a family get together.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of the first time that my dad said, hey, let's sit down. Hey, when I pass away, this is what I want. And that's the first time, in years, we've ever had that conversation. And so that was an imprint of me and actually creating iPlanned. Those are some of the things that went into creating iPlanned. It's just being able to sit down and have those conversations. We never really talked about it after that anymore. So, we know what he wants and we can move forward. So life, continue go on. You take care of business and then go back to the activities you want to pursue.
Right. And then you move forward. Yeah. I said the veteran community is, we have to learn all the things that we're kind of done for us, not that the will was done for us, because we have to be present, we have to sign it, we have to go through it. It's not like a canned one, but it sort of is, there's a template and the lawyer's like, check, 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 yes, no, and then we sign. And if you come through a deployment line and you don't have your will, you will get a canned will. Here you go, or you're not going, that's it.
Right.
Like, they have to have that information. So when we're coming out of the military, it's really important I'm surprised it's not part of our like TAP. I don't remember that being part of our transitioning out. Like, we take the TAP.
I don't know.
I mean, there's so much.
It was a long time for me.
There's so much info that comes flying at us at the time. Like, oh, I don't think it was, and I don't remember any of that. But again, because we all already have a will on file, you're good. Like, off you go, right? So now you come out, and what do you do, right? And I think I don't have the stats on this, so guys, don't come after me if I'm off a little. But I would say in general, and not to be a Debbie Downer here, but veterans' longevity is a little shorter than the average. You know what I mean? Like, there's more people that are have a shortened lifespan. I'm not saying it is shorter, but there's a lot of people that through health conditions, unfortunately, we struggle with still 22 a day.
Right.
Mental health issues that, can lead to physical health issues, and vice versa. So we have all that going on. And the longer we were in, the more that we deployed, the more things that we saw, the more things that we dealt with. I mean, we have a whole PACT Act that just got opened up by Congress. So they're now recognizing burn pits and all the toxic, waste that all the bases that are dealing with asbestos and everything else, they're now recognizing that.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say that it is much wiser for us to be a little proactive and get stuff in order sooner.
Right.
Not saying we don't. There's 1,600 World War II vets that are still ticking along right now.
Yeah.
And that's great. But in general, there is more of us that could take an earlier exit. And we really should just honor that and get in there and plan.
That's done. Yeah. I'm an advocate of planning now. So I plan. So yeah. So definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's sad for me to see. I mean, when you're talking to people and they say, hey, I don't have anything. And then, like I said, the education is a huge thing. I've talked to my father-in-law was in Vietnam. And so sat down and was talking to him, and he was like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
you got to walk me through it. So so that's another thing. And it's the price point from a traditional attorney is a lot higher for a lot of people to afford. And that's why I created iPlanned. And it's to, my goal is to make an impact and to be able to, kind of lower that barrier of entry for people to be able to afford, because everybody needs it. Everybody needs it. When I say anybody that's 18 years older needs to have something in place or can have something in place.
Well, and that's an interesting thing too, right? So 18 and older, like, my son just turned 17 and in a year he's supposed to be an adult. Full chuckle now.
Thank you. I have a 2-year-old.
Yeah. We need wills.
Yeah. Yes, he did. We sat down and sat with him and so first thing he was, I like the military. Hey, what do I sign? And I was like, no, I want you to sit down. I want you to understand, why you're doing these documents. And we only did the smaller bundle we have. It's your medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney, the HIPAA release and directive to physicians.
Yeah.
And so, that bundle is $35. And so, we sat down, I said, you need to understand why you are doing these things. I want you to do that in case something happens, and then, hey, in case you need to tell someone else about it.
Yeah.
So those are, it's important to have. For me, getting back to what you're doing is, with the veteran breakfasts for one, I've seen, people that come in that struggled and they appreciate the environment that you set up for veterans, for not only just networking or just coming to attend and to be somewhere that they're, they can get away from, any type of pressures and things like that. So I truly appreciated those. And like I said, for me, attending those things, I've kind of pushed all those feelings back that I had. Because I remember you had one speaker that talked about contemplating suicide.
Oh, yes.
And then I called you and I was like, my gosh, I was just, that just brought back a flood of memories of things that I experienced. So yeah.
I am actually, what really surprises me is the number of people that will share. Like, I remember the first, so we have three, well, there's two breakfasts that are under Transition Warrior, and then I run a third for the chamber. And that's where it started, right? I have to give credit to where credit's due. They started this breakfast, I was running it, and it became so popular that other cities or other towns here were like, hey, we want it too. And they literally were just kind of nagging me about it. And I was like, okay, well, feel free, like, go start it. And then they would just look at me and I'm like,
you started.
Okay. And so I did. I went to the board president. I was like, listen, I'm the chamber president. And I said, I'm getting asked this. And I said, I'm just gonna be straight up. I'm just gonna kind of reproduce this a little bit different, but pretty much same feel. She's like, go for it. So we don't have any breakfasts that are on top of each other. There's no competition.
Right.
We're not taken from one to the other, but we do, they're all about 30 minutes apart. So we're in San Antonio. There's like a lot of bedroom communities and a lot of towns
Right.
around San Antonio. And we focus on the outside of the city, right? We keep it more on the outside. So we have a ton of little towns and cities around. And then we just kind of strategically place them around the city where people can get to one. Ideally, I'd love to say 15, 20 minutes, but I actually think it's a little too close. I think they pile up on each other, but they're all within about 30 minutes of somebody driving. And some are closer, some people are around the corner from some of them, but we bring people in with the intention, what it should feel like, and you tell me, that we're just gonna have a taco. I guess it's a Texas thing. I say this all the time. Somebody goes, you know you're from Texas. I'm like, why? I go, actually, I'm from New Hampshire. They're like, no, but you've been here a while. Like, why? Because you associate breakfast with tacos.
Yeah, it's gonna have tacos.
And I went, oh, I didn't even know I was doing that. They're like, yeah, that's definitely a Texas thing. I'm like, yeah, it is. So breakfast, you can come have breakfast, but we have lots of breakfast tacos here. So I said, it should just feel like you're coming in and having breakfast, and socializing with people and hearing somebody speak. We always bring in a speaker. And I really don't try to make it formal. I tell people there is no PowerPoint presentation. I think in the 3 years I've done this, there's been one person that came into the chamber one and they brought their own setup. And it actually was good because it was what he was talking about needed a visual. But I would say in general that we say, look, don't bring your AV stuff. We just want you talking to them about what you do,
right.
What you have to offer. If you have info, handouts, swag, whatever that is, you want to raffle something, sure, we got tickets, but we keep it very low key.
Right.
I know you have, and I've been to formal networking events.
Yeah.
And we're in a business where we don't connect with people. Well, we're not going to have much of a business. So I've been to those and I've stood up and I've been like, hi, my name's Donna and my business is, and I do the pitch and
my jingle.
My
jingle.
Yes, my elevator pitch. And I don't care how long I had done it for, every single time I'd stand up, like my palms would get sweaty. And it's okay, it was good. It was good to do it, but I didn't like the environment. The people were great. I met some great people, so I'm not knocking that, but the actual environment, like you knew when you were coming in there, they're there for you to do business with them or vice versa.
Right.
And that was it. Like, and I'm not saying that people don't become friends out of it, and they do.
They do.
They do. I've seen it. I have friends from it. I'm not saying that either, but the environment was just very transactional, and I just didn't like it. Honestly, I just didn't. And I said, great people and all that. It was the energy. It just was transactional. And so when the breakfast started coming up, And I would see it where we were here in Spring Branch, and I would watch them just come together. And this is an older community. This is a more retired community. And you walk in, it's like a whole bunch of grandparents greet you, right? And that's what you feel like. And I was like, God, and they would just say, Donna, how do you make this so special? And I'm like, Shh, I'm not doing it. Like, this is you guys doing this, right? And they would ask all the time, and I would joke and I'd say, oh, I put crack in the salsa. That brings you back every time.
Come on back.
Come on. Yeah. But I didn't know. And so finally, after literally a year, I had people in my ear for constantly. And I was like, okay, so what makes this so special? I don't know. So I sat down and I just thought about it, like the size of it, the, how many, who the people are that are there, what we do, what's the setup, what's the structure, how we do the flow, like what is it? I don't know. So I broke it all down to what I thought how it worked. And I'm like, okay, well, let's recreate this. And so we went to New Braunfels, found a place there, had a small back room, and I said, okay, we're going to do a breakfast. And first event, I had 15 people, I guess, and we run about 15 to 20 right now. It's just building. It's the first year. We have speakers every month, same thing as the one in Spring Branch. I've never not been able to get a speaker. That's been nothing. It has been a little challenging on the community partner, getting the sponsors, but I think this time of year right now has been exceptionally challenging for really everybody. And I think a lot of people are just shutting out anything that just isn't relative to them right now. And not that this wouldn't be relative, but just not, they only have so much energy right now. Right. And so they're narrowing down and keeping it simple, and that's okay. So I pay for speakers and the community partners. I pay for their breakfast. If we have a community partner, we pay for more. I draw names. We pay for more breakfast. If not, I ask them straight up. I'm like, well, if I don't have any community partners, I can't pay for your breakfast. They're like, we don't care. It's breakfast. We'll come and eat anyway. Okay. Because that wasn't the point. The whole point of this was not how many breakfasts can I pay for. The point was getting them out, getting them an environment they're comfortable with, and then bringing in a resource for them. And we've had everything. I mean, we had the fly fishing retreat come out. I've had authors come out. I had the Texas Veteran Land Board come out. I've had little celebrities like Dick O'Neill come out from the Negro League.
Negro League.
Yeah, the only white man to ever play in a Negro League. Look him up.
Play in two different leagues.
That's right. The Southern Negro League. Yeah, he played in two of them. And I've had him speak multiple times at multiple breakfasts, and it was so crazy because the one in New Braunfels is much younger, 30s to 50s. So these guys had no recollection.
They were like, what kind of meeting?
Yeah, and they were blown away. And actually, Dick came to me afterwards and said, I had somebody that just was teared up and was so just so moved. And I was like, awesome. And then when you went in Spring Branch, that's a community that knew. And they were just mesmerized and they were remembering. And he goes, well, these are my people. I'm like, yes, they are, It was great. But you watch the connections happen. And then you watch people come out and then they come back again, and maybe then I don't see them for a month. And then sometimes I'll get a text, oh, sorry, I couldn't make it. Like they're apologizing to me. And I'm like, you don't have to apologize. So this came up, but I'm going to be at the next one. Absolutely, And so we keep seeing this happen over and over. And it's just, they meet somebody and then they meet somebody else and then they become friends. And I have core groups in all of them. I can go to a breakfast and know who the first people will show up at every breakfast. There's this core group, and then they'll go to another breakfast. Sometimes they show up at multiple. I have one guy that shows up at all three of mine, and that's like an hour and some change apart with all these. So this year we added a third breakfast. The end of this year, we added one in our Cibolo area, and my goal ultimately is to footprint these. I'd love to put them throughout Texas. I'd love to
across the United States.
I would. I
think it's a good model to have, and I think it's easy.
It's not complicated.
It's not. So it is. Hey, if you wanted a veteran breakfast in your area, get a hold of
Come
Donna.
on, let's talk. Yeah, and I would, because really, $5 a month, that's what you'd have to give. It's once a month in one location. That is it. I'm really not a fan of the weekly thing. It just kind of is overload and speakers and this and that. Like that. Once a month, we all come together, have some food, good food, good conversation. And then what's really interesting is when it's all done, so we do the same thing every time, at the end of it, I only ask people to stand up and very simply say who they are, what branch of service, and what they're doing now. That is it. This is, you don't have to give an elevator's pitch. You don't have to do anything more than that.
Right.
And it does two things. It allows the people to see who the other people are in the room very briefly. And if they're like, ooh, somebody I'd like to engage with, right? And then two, the ones that are actually the networkers, and I know who all you professional networkers are because none of you guys can say who you are, what branch of service, and what you're doing now. Like you cannot do that.
It's like, sit down there.
The elevator pitch comes out every time. But I love you. It's all good. So then they can say, you know, I actually want to engage with these people. And then the breakfast is done. People leave. They're like, I'm at my max. I've peopled out for the day. I got to go. I got things to do.
Mhm.
Or they're like, hey, I'd love to talk with you. And I have yet to leave a breakfast less than an hour after it's ended. Every one of my breakfasts will be another hour later. And
Still
because
talking.
people are talking, yeah.
Yeah, so I've had the opportunity to attend all three locations. So, and the newly one that you opened up in Shirts, it was a gentleman there that came, and after the meeting, I talked to him briefly. He was like, "Man, I'm so glad I came here," because he was experiencing some medical issues, and so he was able to talk to someone that was there that was that fit with him. So he was like, "Man, I'm so glad I showed up."
Yeah, actually, he came to me and said to me, he goes, holy cow, I met this person and I'm dealing with my hip.
Mhm.
And then he's like, I met somebody else, is actually a videographer, that his daughter started a run club and they were looking for potential videography services or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be right in his wheelhouse because he actually did a lot of fitness videography
Right.
of that. So he was like, so glad I came,
Yeah.
So yeah. And that's like the small events. That's the regular, consistent ones. And then what we do, so when people, when we have community partners for the breakfast, a lot of people understand that money goes multiple places. So that sponsorship is not just to pay for the tacos. We're doing more than that. We pay for a certain amount of breakfast, depending on what level you sponsor at. We pay for a certain number of breakfasts. And then 40% goes to a nonprofit that I've partnered with. And that's something that is a little different than we do. We don't do that in the original One Spring Branch. We do that under the Transitioning Warrior because a lot of great ideas and a lot of great resources are small and they're grassroots and they're starting and they don't have a lot of funding and they don't have a marketing budget.
Right.
I don't have a marketing budget. Do you?
No, small budget.
It's us doing this. And so they don't have a lot of that. So when somebody is a community partner and they offer sponsorship, 40% goes to the nonprofit that I've partnered with. And then that helps that, and it has to be a veteran-focused nonprofit, and it has to be small. You're not going to see us partnering with Woodward Project or Grunt Styles. Not that they're not doing great things, but those are multi-million-dollar nonprofits, right? And we're not that. We're very grassroots. So I help them start up because I work with a lot of these nonprofits. That's how I know how to connect the veterans because I'm like, oh, hey, you would be a good fit. Oh, do you know about these guys? And I do warm handoffs, I'm like, hey, let me introduce you.
Yep.
So I said 40% goes to the nonprofit. Then there's a portion that goes, I think probably about another 40% goes for the breakfast. And then the other 20% goes towards bigger events. So when we have that funding, we put that towards some big events, which you've been intimate with. You've helped us a lot. We have done a mission baseball game. We did a soccer game. And then we did the one night you jumped in, I don't know, he sprinkled some magic dustware and had good friends. And then we did that Blink-182 concert.
Right.
And when we do these events, we actually do them in suites. And a lot of people are like, it's not trying to impress. We do it with intention. Blink-182 was different. We invited families out. It was just a night to relax and everybody had a great time. But the mission games or the baseball games, soccer games, we do those in suites because we want the veterans again to unwind and relax. And they have options. They can go sit outside and watch the game, not be bothered. They can sit in the suite, watch the game. They can engage with the other community partners. And it's the same rules. I tell the community partners, you cannot solicit, and I will not, absolutely will not give you a list of names.
Right. Yep.
I have the list, but I keep the list because I have to contact you somehow. And you will get an email or two from me saying the things that are going on. Right. But you will never get anything from the vendor, from the community partners. And the whole purpose is that the community partners and the veterans need to meet as people. Once they connect, if there's a connection and the service member, the veteran says, hey, can I have your number? Sure. Hey, what do? You can tell them, but there is no sales pitch in there.
Yeah.
And I laugh because people didn't believe it. I actually had somebody at one of my events, and she's somebody I used to work with, and she was telling another friend, she goes, are you sure? Like there's going to be
I'm just going to wait for it. It's good.
Yeah, she was absolutely convinced. And so then the night ends, and we do allow them like a halfway point. We do allow the community partners to say, hey, I'm so-and-so, this is my company, and this is what I do for veterans. Like very simple, but that's it. And so at the end of the night, everybody's leaving and she's like walking past me looking, and she goes, there was nothing, goodbye. Here's your little gifts. Sometimes we have stuff to raffle. I mean, we've raffled off crazy stuff before. And then we sent them on their way. And she was like, I really thought I thought for sure. And she goes, I can't believe it, because I end up going home after these events and I start getting flooded with emails from all these different places. And I'm like, yeah, no.
Not going to happen.
No, we protect that very much so, because that is not the goal. The goal is not that. The goal is to engage and get with people that have been through some of these hard times. That might be a veteran-owned business. You're a veteran-owned business. Like, what is it like to start one? Maybe it's somebody that's running a nonprofit. Maybe you find that you're interested in what they're doing, and either you want to work with them or start your own, or whatever it is. And then there's a mentoring opportunity.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I like it. I like it because it's, like for the Blink-182 we had, there's a gentleman that, didn't get out much.
Yeah.
So it was, inviting him to come out and be able to attend, and him not, because when I first told him about it, he's like, yeah, I can't do that. He's like, I can't sit in there. And so when I told him a surprise, because normally you don't tell him, it's going to be sweet. So I told him, hey, it's a suite. And so he was a little bit more settled in. And then, so he was able to attend the event, and he had a great time. Yeah, he was talking to one of the community partners, and she comes running over to me. I kid you not. She goes, I get it, Donna, I get it. I'm like, what are we getting? Like, do we win? What are we doing? Like, I was totally lost. And she goes, no, I get it. She goes, this person just said this to me, and this kid, because he's young, I mean, to us, he's a kid, right? He could not attend an event like this. And the fact that he was here without his parents or without being hypervigilant, like, it was just an amazing thing. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly why we do it. And then she heard another story. There was somebody else there that was a husband and wife, and I know them. And I met them months before, and I remember meeting him, and he was a little more withdrawn. He was just actually getting ready to start a business. And I ended up working with him for some business. And he came to the event, not had to, but he came to the event, him and his wife. And I said, listen, because he did some work for me. He did my board. I had a magnetic board that puts all the sponsors on and stuff, and he did all this work for me.
And I said, they're gonna ask. I'm just gonna tell you, people are gonna go, where'd you get that? And I'm just gonna point at you. So just let you know. And he's like, okay. And he was all over it.
Mhm.
And his wife said to her, like, to see him doing this and blooming, like, you don't know how happy I am. How he's coming out of his shell, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, it's just, it's making people, meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
Letting them know that their weird is okay, because I'm weird and it's fine.
Yeah.
And we just move forward. And that's the point. Like, we're moving forward, and not in some kind of, corporate business suit kind of way. I'm not knocking that. There's places for that, but all these veterans they're not corporate, they're
Right.
just trying to come out and do better. So it's like, hey, it's not about this, it's just taking a step. Yes, you might step back on occasion, but just balance yourself and then take a step.
Yeah.
Take a step.
Yeah, that's what I like about the bed and breakfast is so you get to see a lot of people at different stages in life and in business, whether it's business or whether it's just in life. And then it's nice to see some be able to move forward. So I've seen a couple of those businesses there, or see the people there in the breakfast. So yeah, that's awesome.
It is a good
It's
thing.
cool. So it's cool.
What else you got? I'm used to like interviewing, so I'm like, oh,
See there.
received.
It was good, but see, I wanted people to know about transition awards and what you put together and what you're doing, because I think, a lot of, even like, like I said, corporate sponsors could, see a lot of value and benefit from what you're doing. And hopefully, people that's, hear this will say, hey, I want to be a part of that. Or somebody says, hey, I want to do this in my city.
Yeah, and we just, there's enough room for everybody, and we really are encouraging. I know that when we are putting out community partners and we're looking at the different levels of sponsorship and whatnot, and people, they want their value in it, right? They want value. And what are they getting out of it? Because honestly, let's be real. I mean, you want to help the veteran, but at the same time, there's got to be benefit to the community partner, right? And so there's a ton of benefit. One, you get literally right in front of you an audience of veterans. And like, I had one interesting story. I had a gentleman that I met, and he was new in his business. He's coming out of his job, and he's moving into this new business. And it's financial. And he was really interested in, coming out and wanted to meet, and could I speak to the veterans? Could I this? And I was like, no, not yet, And I said, if you want, I said, the best thing you can do is just show up for a while. I said, just show up and just be who you are. And he did. He does. He just shows up. He's like, hey, I'm so-and-so. Like, very easygoing guy, really nice. And letting the people get to know him, who he is. And he really is showing, like, I really want to educate. It's not about me getting my dollar signs. It's really, I want to teach people about finances or this or that. And so when he was talking to me about coming to speak, I go, well, let me ask you this, because he's a police officer. I go, if I took a financial advisor and threw them in the middle of your police officers, how many people would jump on board to go get educated by him? He's like, none.
Nobody.
Bingo. Yeah. Neither will our veterans. They ain't gonna do that either, because they don't know you, and they need to know who you are, and they need to trust you. Yeah. And like, once you're doing that, and then they get to know you, then you guys have, because it is important, I said, but nobody's gonna go, hey, let me show you my whatever bills or my income, and like, let me, no, it's just not
all this information. I don't know
it's
you.
not happening.
And it's like I said, it's almost, it's reminiscent of that camaraderie that you had when you're in the military. So that's what the veteran breakfasts are like.
Yeah, it is. It's a good place. And all in an hour and a half. And we always do on Fridays. Yeah. I do all mine on Fridays. Occasionally I'll do a Thursday, but Fridays, because my view is that if you had a crap week, whether you're the veteran or a business owner or whatever, and it's been a crap week, you can always end it on a good note and come have breakfast with us.
Taco.
Yeah, come have a
Have a
taco, right?
taco.
Taco in Texas. We figure out what it's gonna be in all the other states, like the signature thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they can do that, and then they can go on their day, and we're done by 10 in the morning, and you get the rest of the day to yourself, and at least you had a good breakfast to start, and some camaraderie, and
So that's good. Yeah.
yeah.
So you're doing a good thing. It's good.
You're there with me. You're
good.
helping me a lot.
So
Don't
try.
don't shortchange yourself.
I try a little bit. So yeah, so getting back to, so if you had to tell some people, what's the importance of creating an estate plan? What do you think what would you tell someone?
Peace of mind that it doesn't have to cost a lot and it doesn't have to be complicated. And it's very step by step, but peace of mind, because it is hard to lose a family member. It's going to be hard to lose you. I mean, anybody that passes away, they're going to be missed, right? People love you, and you don't want your loved ones having to kind of put all their grieving aside because they have to handle all this stuff because it has to be timely. You can't just sit forever, right? And you want them to not be struggling. And I don't know how many times people see the GoFundMe funds. Every time I see it, it literally, you run through my head every time I see that. So somebody passes away and, heartbreakingly, say it's a younger person, they have a family and they have kids, and immediately there's a GoFundMe for their bills. And I'm not knocking that. I mean, I've donated to many of them, so don't get me wrong. But what goes in my head is what was not set up.
What was not planned? Yeah.
What was not planned? Like, I think you just did an episode, your number 2 one, with Danny Brooks, which we both know.
Yes.
And I'll tell you guys, if you get a chance, go listen to Danny's podcast with him, because there's a lot of things that people don't realize about funeral planning. And you think, you're like, I don't want to think about that. Well, I don't want to think about it either.
Right.
But you can have things kind of set up so your family doesn't have to deal with all that.
It's done, taken care of. And
Yeah.
like I said, it gives you that time because it's going to be chaotic anyway. And, you have to if you have to deal with other things, that's going to take you away from that.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The younger you are, the more complicated I think it ends up being in a way, because you've got children, maybe they're children of, like elementary or high school, but they are not independent on their own. So they need to be secure. You were working, and maybe your partner was or wasn't, but either way, there's a whole bunch of income that just got lost that she or he does not have anymore. So, whereas when you're older, there's a lot of things that have hopefully happened, that maybe you're retired and there's, minimal, like your house is paid, your car is paid, you're living a little more consistent life, versus when the younger years, when you're parenting, it's like up and down. You've got all this, oh, the kid got hurt, our son got hurt, now we're at the hospital, and this and that. Everybody has issues, but I kind of feel like a lot of stuff when you get older, of course there's like health and we got all that, but we do have some of those bigger bills paid, is what I'm saying. Like maybe the house is paid off, maybe the cars are paid off, stuff like that. You don't have children at home, so you have less of a need for income monthly than you would as if you had children, that kind of thing. So I personally think that earlier is better, and you just don't know. You really don't know.
Yeah.
And we don't want to live like that. We don't want to live in fear, but let's just have some stuff in order.
Just have it planned, have it taken care of.
And if you can do it affordably, that's another reason, again, if you're dealing with fixed incomes or lower income, or there's a financial thing that's happening and you can't afford things, I get it. The thought of going to a lawyer, what's the traditional lawyer cost for a will?
Well, I mean, some of them could be, $900, $700, $900, $1,000, $1,500. So.
And iPlanned is
$149.
$149, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the fee to house it, which is what, 35 a year?
And so,
something
yeah,
like
so
that?
there's we did create a vault. So, you can, once you execute your documents, you go get them notarized, you're able to upload them into your own secure vault to where you can, put your documents there. You can put pictures, you can put videos. So if you have some, personal videos and pictures that you want to share with your loved ones after you pass, that it's
Oh,
there.
neat.
And so it also has a sharing feature. So if you want to share it with, if you have an executor of your will, hey, once if I pass away, you have access to it. Or if you want to share pictures with your loved ones, several
Yeah.
vaults, you can be able to share those
Yeah, see, I
within the
mean,
platform. Yeah.
so for less than $200, you literally have a location to store it and you have a will.
Yeah.
And then yearly $35. I mean, it's minimal.
First year is free, so yeah.
And your first year's free. I mean, comparatively, and wills, that's another thing that probably should be brought up. When my friend passed away, we couldn't find the will. And I was part of the liaison team between the family and the military. And so we had to go in the house and dig through the house. We were, cleaning stuff out, and we were looking for the will. And we found one, and we still don't know if that's the most recent one, but it was the only one we found. And so it's the only one that stood.
Wow.
And it was not good. I can just say that it was not a good setup for the partner in that. And she did not get anything out of it. So, because they weren't married, it wasn't a.
Wow.
So again, be on point.
Have it taken care of.
Have it
Yeah.
taken
So
care of,
yeah,
yeah.
I've had, family member, my aunt passed away, and she called, and I was talking to her. She said, yeah, same thing. I can't find anything. And so those are some of the things that happened that kind of prompted me to create, the vault and storing those things. So, it was a lot of those incidences, the features that we have today are a result of those things. So.
Yeah. So there you go. So for the veteran community, I think it's smart to do this. We're not always the best at being proactive, guilty as they come. But I do think it's extremely important to have that conversation and have a basic will. It doesn't have to be fancy, and boom, done.
So I think, one of the things that we did partner up with and we talked about is that, we created a discount.
Yes.
And then so some of the proceeds will go towards Transitional Warrior. So the coupon code is TW10. And so know that if you can get your will, get everything, those things taken care of, and then it'll go to a great cause as well.
Yep, and you get a little discount. You can find it on my webpage, rebel-llc.com. I don't even know my own website. That's horrible. It is. It's rebel-llc.com.
There you go.
Parent company, yes. But yes, you can do that. If you have questions, just reach out to us. We talk all the time, don't we?
Yeah, all the time. So I was bouncing ideas all the time. So, which is good. So yeah. And in closing, if you want to learn more about iPlanned, you can go to www.iplanned.io. If you have any questions, you can email me personally at info@iplanned.io. Anything else?
No, I appreciate being here.
Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for helping me with my podcast.
Awesome.